what we're going to do today, and we could do this laying, but we could also do it sitting. But now this is the core essence. The brain system, which, remember, they break it down into the nervous system, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic nervous system. Then they have the ethnic nervous system. I forget what pronunciation.
Etheric. Enteric. It's called enteric. The one in your gut.
Enteric. There we go. Remember, that's again dividing the brain system, which again works as a whole. Okay? All parts are working at all times, unless there's a brain problem or injury, or like with my brain cancer, there's blocks. That's just the way it is. All right? Now, the system has two basic functions, which means it's either inactive or it activates. When we go from one to the other, and it doesn't matter if we go from activate to inactive or inactive to active, that's the most crucial point. It's how you initiate, all right? And the initiation should really be done more with thought than it is with force. Okay? So, for example, something like getting up in the morning. Most people, or some people, throw themselves out of bed, right? They force the activation, all right? And then the system becomes programmed in that way, right? Or some people hit snooze, 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 and they go in the opposite direction, right? Where they're kind of forcing themselves to get up. And what we're looking for is the perfect initiation. So sorry about that. The perfect initiation between beginning and ending. And remember, everything has its initiation and then its end, its culmination, all right? When we are, well, the exercise, and we can do it here just sitting right now, in quote unquote stillness, which, remember, stillness doesn't actually exist, because remember, everything inside of you is always moving, okay? But we're not allowing the body to move. We're not allowing the head or the shoulders or the arms. When I make a decision to do anything, to activate, all right, I want to see if I can trick the system into staying as calm as possible for as long as possible until the moment arrives. Because remember, our minds, which are thinking about future sometimes, like to go ahead of us, all right? And when we go ahead, we are out of the moment. Or we like to think about the past to bring it into this moment. Oh, this was just like yesterday. And then the same thing, we are out of the moment. So the exercise, which we're just going to do sitting at first, let's sit and think of your right arm is very calm. And you're thinking of moving it. But as you think of moving it, do not let anything else engage. So I'm thinking of moving the right arm. I'm thinking of it lifting off my leg or lap or wherever it is. But I'm not allowing anything in the system to get excited. The head is calm. The shoulders are calm. They're very wide. The pelvis is calm. The legs are calm. The feet are releasing into the floor. Now, Alexander did this a lot. And he would even say to himself, I'm not going to lift my right arm. I'm not going to lift it. I'm not going to lift it. I'm not going to. And then he would surprise himself and lift the arm in the midst of convincing his body he was not lifting it. Okay? Now, this is super important, and we're really getting into martial arts, because you really have to have great skill over the brain system in order that it doesn't activate. So for example, I have, well, these glasses, if I'm going to take these off, most people, before they even get to the glasses, are already moving their head forward to meet the hand to bring the glasses off. And remember, none of that is necessary. None of it is necessary. And even the way they grab the glasses or force them off. See, those habits have become so extreme that the body just does it by sheer habit. And it doesn't give a thought. Now, when we do that, not only are we out of the moment, but we are wearing down the system. We are not really feeling through the system to the activity. Okay? So now, let's say you are going to go for your glasses, or maybe you're going to go for your hair. But the trick is to convince yourself that you're not. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to stay open. I'm going to think about my legs releasing. I'm going to think about my shoulders expanding, my breath. And then whenever you want, let something occur and see if you can do it without engaging anything other than the act of the movement itself in an easeful way. Okay? Whenever you're ready. And again, you're breathing, you're calm. That was nice. That looked good. That looked good. So it's that whole sense. I'm not going to do it. And then I do it. That's right. And can I stay specific to what I, quote unquote, imagine that I'm going to do? But I keep saying I'm not going to do it. And then, oh, I do it. It's good. And you can bring in the left arm if you want to do it with the left. Some of you already are. And you want to have that idea that I don't have to prepare. Remember, these are movements we've all been able to do. I don't have to prepare. I know how to do them, right? Unless somebody had a stroke. That's a whole nother ballgame. That's a whole nother ballgame. All right? Now, everything is the same. If I cross a leg or uncross a leg, I am releasing the system in order to do the movement, the whole system. And I'm training my mind that all of my system participates in taking these glasses off, but it doesn't participate through effort. It doesn't do something. It simply remains where it is and then does it. And now if you have something in front of you that you can pick up or change glasses like I did, it's the idea that there is no force. There's no effort. That's beautiful. And remember, we take the rush out of it, or we put more meaning into it. Yes, Hatumbra.
I just want to ask, can you also practice it when you eat? Bringing
Absolutely. Eating is a huge one. Huge one, because remember, it's all hand toward mouth. And again, most people, when they eat, remember, everything goes forward from the top. And really, when you think about it, you know, it's like that old thing with the queen and you don't want to spill soup on yourself. It's that idea that really when we go down to it, we're saying something very different to the body. And there is a desperation in it. And I'm sure you've seen people who've gone at something like they were devouring it. And they're not really doing that, but their habit is to do that. Their habit. And that's where these quote unquote old ways of being polite, it was like, it's not about polite. Because think about it, when, what do I have? I know I have something here. When I bring something up to my mouth, and again, when you see little kids in their high chairs, they always do this. They bring it to the mouth. This stays released. They tilt it, and then they bring it away. They don't collapse down into it. Now, that is very bad for the digestion system. When we collapse into the food, the drink, when we're cutting a piece of meat and the shoulders and everything is involved, what we're saying is there's a desperation. We may not feel desperate, but the body feels desperate. It's kind of like somebody who's starving. You see what I mean? It reads it that way.
But different cultures do it differently. I mean, Chinese people go down here with rice to eat rice and lean into the bowl. It's just custom. So I think that's also partially cultural, right?
It's cultural, but what we want to remember is that doing what's necessary, like when you see a real master do it, even a tea ceremony, there's an effortlessness that goes through that. But remember, in all cultures, so for example, when they even sit by squatting, there are those that really do it beautifully and easily, and they're in their 80s.
Right.
And then there are those that are a wreck. So what we've got to remember, this goes through all of it. And even like if I do decide to tilt my head forward, I'm releasing it. I'm not, in a sense, going down to it. Do you see the distinction? And yes, there's many, many different, even just like squatting at a table, you know, that's a whole different custom. But are they doing it beautifully, or are they not doing it beautifully? Yes.
So Gary, I mean, I think this is sort of what I was asking you right in the beginning. So, I mean, obviously we don't do everything in our whole lives with our torso aligned like this. So, you know, I don't know, if I want to look up at the stars, I am effectively going to do this, right?
Right.
But it's doing the, instead of like doing this into
Correct.
it, you know, so, but I'm still maintaining that line, and I'm still maintaining that idea that my skull is floating above the top vertebra, which means that the only thing that's actually happening is that my head is tilting back, and nothing else here is actually taking up any kind of strain, right? So my leg, if I was standing, my legs would be sort of just, my knees would be comfortable. I'd be gently on the ground. My spine would be aligned, and then I would be doing this. So I can, as you said, it's like the bending. You can do this forward, or you can move it. So it's always having that awareness of having it open, the way in which the description, the collarbones and the shoulder blades and the pelvis and the top of the spine, right? Regardless, you can be in any, I almost want to say like any shape. I'm trying to think of, I don't know, you could be a gymnast, right? And you could be
a tightrope walker. Yep.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
See what I mean? As a matter of fact, a tightrope walker better be calm. They better be. Because if they're not, if they're afraid of being up there, they ain't going any place but down. That's the only place they're going. You see what I mean? And we've seen this over and over and over. But again, we get the idea. So for example, when somebody eats or drinks like that, right away, people have a certain impression of that person. Whereas somebody eats or drinks that way, they have an impression. It's not about really what the impression. You can play any character you want. You can even play a really bad character, but you don't want to play it in a way that's exhausting you.
Can I add that, Gary? Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. And to you, Loretta, as well. It's just a simple example, but my family comes from a long line of women with big boobs and hunched over shoulders because they're givers. So innately, their posture's like this, and they're weighing down, giving. And I notice myself when I'm very unconscious, when I chop food, I naturally hunch down. But in my years of becoming more aware of myself, my posture, and my energy, when I am aware, I catch myself and I'm up straight, my neck is up, my posture straight, and then I chop. And I'm so much more present naturally when I have become aware versus I'm just chopping, I'm just doing. So it's almost like we naturally go into a certain posture based on what we've become. Yet when we become aware, we straighten out ourselves and then we do what we do. And the energy is very refreshing. It's almost like it's like you get a clean breath of fresh air.
You are so well stated. And remember, especially when we're dealing with something that's going to come into us, if we're not treating it well while it's outside of us, it's not going to have the same effect. Even if I'm stirring something, if I'm like, and treating the food like I'm just throwing it around and I'm tense, remember that food is not going to taste as great. That's why grandma could make something that nobody else could make, because she did it in a very different way, in accordance with her relationship to it. And so she almost in a sense could make the food transform itself, because she was very excited about making this her favorite pie or whatever it was. It doesn't really matter. She could transform it. So nobody could make it quite as good as she could. They tried, but they couldn't. And that's why, because she was involved in it in a very different way than they were. Does this make sense? And it's very subtle. It's very subtle. And and this is why I like to bring it up last, because it can make people nuts, because they start to realize, going for the glass, that everything gets tense doing that one simple act. And from my belief, this is what wears the body down. Whether we're talking about aging or disease, it doesn't really matter what it is. This is what wears it down, because as time goes on, that habit worsens. And you can look at any person in their 80s or 90s, and if they are beautifully upright, they've been handling themselves well. And if they are not, they cause that to happen. See, everybody thinks there's something wrong with them, or it was osteoporosis, or it was arthritis, or it was this. But they didn't always have the osteoporosis. They didn't always have the arthritis. What they did is they slowly invited it in through their use, whatever that use or misuse, I should say, was. And people who have kids, oh my God, picking up kids. I mean, again, I see things and it's like, well, yeah, the baby's screaming. I mean, how would you like somebody to come and grab you like that and hoist you up? It's like, oh my God. But once again, we get tied into time, and we get tied into rush and hurry, and we feel like, no. We've got to do this. We've got to do this. You know what I mean? And especially with kids, because kids make you feel under the gun, always running late, you see. And remember, a child doesn't have a sense of time. They don't understand any of those concepts. So does this make sense to everybody? And you need to practice. Legs are the same way. And if I show you here, when I'm going, if I'm standing and I'm just here, when I move, where am I going to go? So for example, the knee leads. Let me see if I can make that better. The knee leads, it picks up, and then maybe it turns. Or maybe it does and goes straight. In other words, this doesn't know where you're going until the last second. And that's another thing. Remember, we change our minds, which is great. It's great. But people want to anticipate what's about to happen. And then they get frustrated when that doesn't occur. And therein lies all of the anxiousness that we build up throughout a day. Go ahead, Loretta.
So sorry, Gary, I just want to make sure that I understand this, because as you say, I think, this like makes perfect sense. And then afterwards, I'm thinking like, okay, now I actually don't know what's going on. So please bear with me, everyone. So this whole thing about wanting to be completely still and like, I'm not going to move my arm. I'm not going to move my arm. And then I move my arm. Okay. That is, so it's, so if I understand this correctly, it's that I'm lying in bed and I'm, oh God, I've got to get up. I've got to get up. I've got to get up. And in that, I'm already creating all this breakdown. Whereas if I'm lying there and I'm completely like aligned, for lack of a better word, so everything's going the way it's supposed to, and I'm not getting up, I'm not getting up, I'm not getting up. When I actually then initiate that movement, then it happens with less effort. That's what I'm going for, right? I'm going for not having the anticipation, because the anticipation causes all this misalignment.
Correct.
Okay.
And so remember, oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry. So let's just say that I'm going to use martial arts, right? Something where you can get hurt. Okay. So you're about to, I don't know, you're doing like in martial arts, there's this, there's the kata, which looks like the dance. And then there's this thing that they call bunkai, which is actually the application. So one person's attacking and one person's defending, but it's stylized. You know what's coming. It's like you can practice it. You punch, I block, then I step through and I kick and you block, right? So it's a choreographed set of movements. So you know what's happening. And so let's just say you're training this. Okay. So you're the person who's doing the kicking and the other one's going to block, you block. And it's something that's difficult. So if I understand this correctly as well, so my fear of, oh my God, am I going to get this right? Is the instructor going to, call me out? Am I going to look like an ass in front of the class? Am I going to get hurt? Because that's a very real thing. Oh my God, if that person kicks me really hard and I block them on my shin, am I going to bruise my form? All of that, right? That's already preparing my body. It's already breaking me down before I've even entered into the movement.
Correct.
So that's the fear part, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So my job is to try and be as aligned while I'm getting the instruction and almost saying, well, not saying it doesn't matter if you mess it up. It's like, well, it's not about like, I'm really focused on, okay, I've really got to get this right. It's more like I'm going to do nothing until it's time for me to initiate.
Correct.
That would be the way of sort of handling that.
You go fully. Yeah. And then you go fully with the act. But if you keep revving up, it's like if you've got a procedure going on at the dentist and you start thinking about it hours or days before, that procedure is going to be more awful than it would have been if you were able to stay in this before the dentist actually started. You will be in more pain.
Got you. Okay.
See?
So staying in this is, I'm right here, right now. I haven't moved. I'm not thinking about moving. I'm not going to move because I'm only here right now. And then as soon as I've moved, then I'm only here right now. And then I move again, then I'm only here right now. That's correct. That's what we're trying to do, right?
It's a series of moments that we've really gotten out of. That's the problem. So
to add to that, Loretta, Gary, would it be the word I keep getting is mindfulness. So if we had to break
Yes.
it down into the simplest form, it's kind of like teaching one to be, the intention of everything we do is the mindfulness of it. Am I intentional with my movement? Do I know how my body is? Because our body is the unconscious form. And then when we're conscious, we're handling it in a different way. So when we're mindful of what we're doing, we are, I don't know how to explain it, but the word I keep getting is mindfulness.
Yes. And remember, the whole body, the mind is going through the whole body. So when you are sewing something, the whole body is mindful of the sewing, and it's in the zen of the sew. But if it's not, and you're sewing and let's say, I don't know, bouncing your legs or you're tapping your feet, remember then you're not in the fullness of the sewing. And this is where we get into trouble. Split. We're splitting it up.
Yeah. We start creating like fractals of ourselves as opposed to like seeding the roots in what we're doing, being intentional in what we're doing.
Correct.
And we do.
So
And
does mindfulness though connote some degree of conscious? I'm thinking as an actor, I'm thinking, you know, there can be a criticism. You see a performance and say, oh, her technique was showing, meaning, you know, you can be so aware of how you're holding your body, etc. The idea is to integrate all of this so you're moving naturally as the character.
correct.
And not thinking about every movement and saying I'm here because there may be frenetic things that are required or whatever.
And that is the master.
Yes.
The master makes it look like it's no big deal.
Right.
Kristen, were you going to say something?
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out, I had a shot yesterday. I had fluid taken out of my knee. I think I did something bad to my my meniscus. So what I'm trying to figure out is, so I'm feeling the pain and it keeps shifting because I'm feeling so much pain in my knee. So are you trying to say that I need to let that pain go? How would I actually let the pain go? Because I'm feeling it every single second. So
Right.
how do I keep in my mind that I'm not feeling that pain? How would I get my mind to think I'm
Well,
not feeling?
You are feeling the pain.
Okay.
So you accept that you are feeling the pain. Next part is there a way to alleviate? With knees, it's always about the cap. Remember, the cap is not attached to the knee. It's actually enfolded in the thigh. So if you could let go of your thigh and allow the knee to the cap to release, and then thinking the lower leg is relaxing away from the upper leg. In other words, you give that joint more space. Now, it doesn't mean it will be gone, but what will eventually happen is it will lessen. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to lessen, because wherever you have pain, your greatest hope is to lessen it. That's it. People try to get rid of it. And remember, when we try to get rid of it, we just create more pain because we're using too much tension. We're using way too much tension.
So I would need to release the kneecap, or release the thighs with the kneecap, or try to separate them from?
Yeah, the thighs going towards the kneecap. The kneecap is going towards the wall opposite it, right? And then I'm letting the rest of the leg release in its downward direction toward the foot. Remember, the downward part of the leg goes to the foot, but the upward part of the leg, well, the knee goes away from the leg. And this part is going wherever it's directed. This is now going up to the ceiling. You see what I mean? And then I keep running that through the system and go, is allowing it to kind of penetrate the pain, because pain always means there's some kind of obstruction. That's it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yep.
And again, even with the cancer, I was able to go through it. But you've got to go slow, and you've got to not know what's going to happen, because we never really know. We never know what the outcome of anything will truly be. Only thing we can know is how it's doing in the moment. And can I get it to move in a different direction? The answer is yes. Now, remember, sometimes when you let go, you get more pain, but you're getting more pain because now it's going through the layers of the muscle that is tight. And so that's why people, for example, who have a massage and then they feel, even more pain, is because they did let go, but now it's gone to a deeper level, you see? And then you have to work with that, because no one can ever really predict how your body will respond to whatever. So for example, like I've been stuck with more needles than, God, who knows? And as soon as I know that it's coming into me, I'm softening and allowing that to open so that we won't have a problem. I rarely have trouble as much as they did it, except when my veins were collapsing. But because we give the body the permission to go with it, you see? And then if the person doing it is too tight, because I remember once there was this guy who was very frustrated. My veins were collapsing and they couldn't get it in. I said, no, everything's okay. And it will happen, but we just got to be patient, and calmed him down so that then we could move forward with the process. Because remember, those people out there, even though they're trained, they could be more nervous than you. As a matter of fact, I would say most of my people were more nervous than me. I was not nervous. They were more nervous, especially with the second cancer. The first cancer was a little trying for everybody,
And you attribute your ability to do this really to your internalization of the Alexandria technique.
Total. I would not be alive today. There's no way, because there was too much coming at me.
Right.
So I had to deflect and open and go against it. And I also had to accept my death, because the first one, they said, you will die. Everybody said you will die, except for Mexico, who said, look, you really could die, but we have an idea that might work.
Right.
But they didn't guarantee anything. So, and I said, well, what are my chances? And they said, well, maybe about 20%. I was like, well, that's better than 0.
So great.
Yes, Loretta.
So Gary, so in terms of the healing, so the technique, all right, I'm just trying to understand. So the technique itself is opening you or making you receptive, so you've got all this stuff coming at you, right? So, you've got cancer and you're going to die, no matter whatever the labels are, right? Someone is actually telling you this really bad news about this tumor that you've got, and that's going to kill you. Okay. Yep. So the doing of the Alexander is about not holding that stuff that came at you like in your body, right? So it's about opening the system in a way that the energy or whatever it is, like, can move through the system effectively so that it can go where the body needs it. All right. Okay. And then so it's the second part. So that in itself can be healing. All right. So no, I've got to go back a little bit. Okay. So if you get a cancer, or you get a Crohn's disease, or you get a meniscal tear, it doesn't really matter what it is, right? If you get something, it's because there's been a breakdown that's caused it. It's either mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, whatever. It's a combination of all of that. Okay. Yeah. So this is not, so now you do the technique, and the technique essentially stops the stuff that's coming from outside, all the scary stuff, the like fear stuff. You're basically almost repelling it. And I don't mean in an aggressive way. I just mean you're relaxing into that. So what's going to happen is going to happen. And, you know, I might die. And all right. So that's sort of how I understand it. And then by using the Alexander, whatever therapy you then choose to do. So you went to Mexico and whatever they said was going to give you 20% possibly chances, by applying the technique, it doesn't guarantee that the therapy is going to work. I get that. I mean, because you've got to let go of the need to know, right? So you basically release the need to know. The technique itself helps you to keep the body and the being in a way that is, well, I don't need to know how this is going to work, and this can go either way. But in order for it to potentially work, I'm going to make myself as receptive to it as I can be. And this is this state, right, that we create through the Alexander. And then you do, let's say, the therapy, or you have the surgery, or whatever the hell it is. And the more you can keep yourself in this state, the more you allow what needs to happen naturally to happen. And, you know, if the body is a self-healing mechanism and that's where it's going, then the healing can happen. Or I don't know, even the death can happen, but I would imagine the death would happen. Even the death would be different. There would be this like fighting all the way to the grave, or there would be this more sort of beautiful progression into the grave. Have I got this right?
And death, remember, just is another, see, it's transforming everything. You're always transforming, like when we're talking about the pain in the knee, you're transforming it. That's what we're doing with everything in every moment of life. We're transforming it into its next state, or into its next moment. And death is one of those transformations that occur. When people are so terrified of it, remember, now we've got a problem, we've got a block. And to be honest, I think that's a manipulation, because whoever said death was horrible, and if it's so horrible, why does it happen to everybody? So that's another thing that people have to come to grips with. We've been programmed with these beliefs and ideas, none of which are real. None of them are real, but we don't realize we can make a choice over them. And that is a transfiguration, because then you become your own entity. So I really believe that the reason I overcame death was I no longer had any fear of dying or anything horrible happening within that state. And if I did die, that was the experience and what was to be. And if I didn't die, that was the experience of what was to be. There's no bad or good in any of it. But again, the blessing was being faced with it and being told I couldn't survive it. That actually allowed me to surrender more fully.
Gary, can I add something to that?
Sure, please.
This is in no way or means anywhere near as what Gary went through, but it's just to kind of share similar experience in a different way. I had the most excruciating sciatica pain from my lower back into my left leg down to my foot for about 3 years. Yeah. And it wouldn't, I was always running. I was always a runner. And it got to a point where I could barely put my left foot into my clutch. I'd have to like pull over onto the highway because I actually like, it would tense up to a point where I couldn't drive properly. I couldn't run. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. It was so bad. And I was maybe, shucks, how old? I must have been like 23 or 24. And my spirit said to me, like, there is something you need to look at. There's something deeper here. And obviously I did like a good 3 or 4 years of research into the left side of the body, my emotional blocks, my wounds. And I went really deep into myself and my spirit and where I had blocked myself. And I started working with that. But the moment I allowed myself to know that I can heal, the moment I realized I was capable of healing, the moment I realized, hang on, other people have done it, I can do it too. And the moment I started seeing the connection between my physical dis-ease and what my wounds of the past were and what I was holding on to and not looking into, and I thought, okay, cool. No, this makes sense. Like my left side of the body, mom, anger, resentment, all of that stuff. I went so deep into it. And then I started allowing the healing. I started allowing the meditations. I sat and I did it every day, continuously, but intention of, I can heal. This is something here, but it's kind of opening that portal of seeing that there is something so much more. As soon as you block yourself off to the disease, to the death, to like Gary, like if he had just said, all right, I'm going to die, cool, I'm out, he probably would have. But
Sure.
the fact that he opened him up, himself up to the fact that there is something more. And that's what I did. I am not kidding. I spent 2 weeks in a camper van in a forest meditating every day. And this one night, the stars were beautifully bright. It was a full moon. I stood on the balcony and I just stood in prayer. And I felt the most magnificent pop in my left leg. And that pain never came back again.
There you
But
go.
every time my thoughts go back to that old self that I was when I had the pain, my left knee tingles, becomes heavy, and becomes
Mhm.
weak.
Mhm.
It's phenomenal. Like I've never experienced something like that before in my life. And so that was the first time I started realizing how powerful our intention of healing and opening up to modalities of the healing in our physical body is.
That's so beautifully said. And thank you for saying that, because again, all of us have it. We're just programmed to believe we don't. That's the problem. And we're mostly weakened by, the systems. The systems, because of course they want you to do what they want you to do. They want you to give them the money. But if everybody realized they could do this on their own, it would be a whole different world. And a lot of people really can. Miraculous healing like that, I would consider miraculous, is the norm. The problem is most people will not allow it. They will not allow it to come through in that way. Because nobody can, your mind is yours. And you have the right to shape it and direct it and formulate it in whatever direction is working for you at that moment. But when you get these, oh, you're never going to survive, there's no way that's going to happen. See, they're literally putting a hex on you. They're literally putting a curse into you. And then you have to overcome that. And some people are already, like I was, so weakened by the whole thing. It was like, oh my God. And then I just surrendered. And that's why I called my book Bliss. I let go and I was in bliss. And I thought, well, I remember still in the park, I was looking at a bunch of people after that diagnosis. And I thought, wait a minute, every person here could be dead by tonight.
Right.
Every child, every adult, it doesn't matter. Everyone could be dead. It's just that I was given proof and I'm shown these papers that say that I'm going to die and not them. But that's not the case. So it was almost like I got through the scam of our world. It's just a scam. And what I mean by that, they try to tell you what they want you to believe. They want to become the God of your world. They want to become your God. And if we give up our power, that's it.
It's also economically very powerfully driven. And I went initially in ministry to work in hospice, and I worked in hospice for 4 years. It was very different in the early 2000s. I have returned to a form of that work and was shocked at how corporate hospice has become. So
Yep.
now it's exactly what you're saying. So that this death, end of life doula work is much more holistic because it really, it goes back to the way we're birthed at either end, being so significant in terms of just relaxing into it. For the corporate awfulization, you know, you have to fit into, and I don't know if this is the way it is in South Africa or South America, but certainly in America, we are completely manipulated all day long by big pharma.
Right.
And you a certain amount of time you're supposed to live. And if they say we're putting you on hospice, that's often now, and it wasn't before, it's often now a corporate decision to save them money. And so
Yep.
they're, if you're saying I'm fine, or I'm in bliss, or I'm having an experience that's different than this, they're going to say, we need to bring in a psychiatrist because you're in denial.
You're in denial. That's, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
It's very powerful. And so I think, you know, this is so, it feels gigantic. It feels like, you know, yeah, it
really is. And the Alexander was my way out because I knew through my training, I could control my mind.
Yes.
They cannot control my mind. They can tell me I'm going to die as much as they want. They can show me the pictures, but I'm in charge and
Right.
not them. And that's the only reason I really believe I survived. And that's the message I'm trying to get with the Alexander, because the Alexander, the first thing you got to do is get control of the body. Why? Because the mind runs through the body. And if the body's in bad shape, you have little chance of resolving anything else. Little chance, because the body is out of your control. It's like a bad dog. It's out of your control. It won't listen. It won't sit still. It won't do anything, and it rips everything apart. So first you got to get control of that. And then once you get the body opening and in charge and deciding, how much energy am I going to give this? Am I going to choose to do it, or am I not? That I become the ruler of this system. Then it goes more into these ideas of spiritual, mental, emotional, that you don't have to bow to anything. You really don't. I have walked out of more offices than I can even tell you, because you are actually the one in charge. They don't want you to think that,
Right.
but you are really the one in charge, not them. And that is the salvation. No matter how bad, no matter how horrible it is, and I've been there, no, and you don't have to do it their way.
Right.
And one guy, I finally said, you know, he thought I was out of my mind for going to Mexico. Of course, because all you get is Mexico is third world and they know nothing. And here now they saved me twice, right? But he said to me, you know, you're gonna die from this. And I said, yeah. And you know what? I would rather die in a beautiful place in Mexico than with you.
Did you say that to him?
Yeah.
Good.
And it was like, what else are you gonna say? I mean, I would rather do that. I mean, I'm dying, so what's the difference? And that really empowered me. And when I think back on that incident, what a blessing. You would think being told you're going to die at any minute is the worst thing that could happen. That was the greatest blessing of my life in that moment. The greatest blessing, because it really showed me how I am in charge, and I do not have to bow or bend to anything or anyone, ever, ever.
Right. So speaking of the master, I mean, this shows your mastery of this technique.
In this regard, and I want to share something else. Many Alexander teachers do die of horrible cancers. I've known many of them, and when they get cancers, it's a little like mine. They're pretty severe. I'm not sure what the relationship is, but all of them died and some of them with lesser cancers than mine.
Oh,
And what
good.
I mean by lesser, less dangerous than mine. And what I find in the Alexander, a lot of teachers don't let it go into the emotional, psychological, spiritual aspect.
Right.
They try to keep it at the physical, but the physical is the door in. Then you've got to go into the room and you really got to use it and utilize it.
And this is the great distinction between the way you teach Alexander and the Alexander I've been exposed to throughout my acting training, because it seemed always very cut off from the emotional, which is an essential tool for portraying a character.
And that's what, when my first Alexander class, I hated it.
Yeah.
He was like a zombie. He was like, oh yes, we don't, you know, and it was like, how is that helpful?
No.
But see, that's when I learned the secret. And then when I learned the secret, I got a deadly cancer and was supposed to die at any minute. So it was like, so, okay, you know the secret. Now let's see you prove it, you know? So it was like the universe. And in some ways, I feel that's why I'm here. I'm here to give people a very different idea of this. Because a lot of people think Alexander is about posture, which is only a very small portion. Go ahead, Loretta.
So Gary, so when you say, so I mean, I'm completely on the same page of the emotional and the you know the trauma wounds and the what all that stuff. Okay, so again, in the same way that the story I was talking about, like if I'm being faced with something that I physically have to do that's scary, like a scary move or a scary fight or whatever, the more I can be in that sort of aligned state and then just take action, then I just go, okay, the freer the movement's going to be. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's less likely of, let's say, injuring myself in a physical kind of context, okay? And so with an emotional one where, you know, if you've been suppressing an emotion for a long time and there's this suppressed emotion or that you've distracted from, and when that then comes up, it's the same thing. When you get the emotion, you get all these guarding patterns that happen. So again, if you can be in this sort of aligned state, that allows you to allow that emotion to also flow freely, just like you're allowing the body to go where it needs to go, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, when you get the body freed, everything will free within it. The emotions, the psyche, it'll all free up. You just got to wait. Some won't free up as quickly, but they will free up eventually. And then you go, oh, because they're all participating. And when we get into an organized, easeful state, we are empowering ourselves. That's it. That's really what we're doing. We're empowering ourselves. And then the things that need to come in will come in. They will come in. And when I was taken into surgery, the surgery that I wasn't supposed to survive. And even Mexico was very worried. We were looking for a time window where my red blood cell count was okay. But what I remember is everything was quiet, everything was peaceful and fine. We're waiting. And then they burst through the doors. And I mean, like drama all the way. Burst through the doors with this table. There's a whole team and they're going, this is it, you know? And I was like, all right, calm down. And they're going at a pace because the surgeon said, it's right. This is our chance. Get him, right? So they all went into high powered mode. And I said, all right, Gary, we're going to go with this. We're going to go with this like an ascension. We're just going to let it take us. And they did. They had to pick me up off the table, transfer me to the gurney, hook all these things into me. And then we went down that hall like a race car. And I just went with it. And then we went down there and I got myself together again. The guy comes up, starts telling me how it's going to proceed. And I stayed as calm as I could through that entire journey, because I didn't want my system to be like, "Ah," just before we're going to do a deadly surgery. And it takes practice. I will tell you, had I not been doing Alexander for what, 15 years at that point, I don't think I could have survived it. I really don't. It was stressful. It was stressful. But the more we keep knowing we have the power to do anything, that's the key. No one can force your thinking. No one can force your mind. You are in charge of it all. And then you have to just choose, where do you want it to be? And by the way, negative programming is all through television. So you have to watch. That's going into subliminal. I don't watch bad things anymore. I choose everything. You have to watch, because again, we think it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal, because the subliminal can come and knock us out. And remember, sometimes the ego can all of a sudden pick up all that subliminal programming and go, oh yeah, that could happen to you. That could happen to you. That's where it's bad. It's good when it protects us, but it can get really bad when it's using our what we've done against us. So we have to watch that as well. And so the more you keep doing it, the better you will become. The more you keep thinking you all will be well, the better it will open up into the system, because it will. All of us are here. You know what I mean? We all have our arms and legs. Yes. Antoinette.
Maybe I can be a case study. I've got a question. So you had 15 years of experience. So now right now, as I sit here, I'm being very honest and vulnerable. I'm having a bit of a panic attack over something, not to do with this. So I haven't got 15 years experience of the Alexander. What do I do next? I lift my head up. I do all the.
Always start with the body. And then realizing that the panic is happening within you. The system is creating the panic. Even though it may be something real out there, only you can panic over it. You are in charge of it. And then the question is are you holding on to something, or are you working to let it go? What are you doing with the energy? It's just energy. It's just energy. And so what are you really looking to accomplish? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Knowing that doesn't shift it. I mean, I've known that for a very long time. So knowing it, just the knowing itself doesn't shift it. So it's maybe just allowing it with the postural techniques at the same time.
You always recognize, just like Barry told me I'm going to die, you recognize that as the event. That's what's going on. But what you have to keep adding is, it's not my reality unless I want it to be. So I'm going to breathe and accept that I'm feeling panic, but not allowing it to overwhelm my system. I'm trying to bring it down, just like somebody who's been in a car accident. You're trying to bring it down. The reality, though, is there. The reality is there, but you don't have to give over to it completely. You take it in waves.
Just to add, Gary, then it's almost like it is what it is, and then you choose what to add to it.
That's
so
correct.
It's not to take away from the situation. You're feeling what you're feeling. The situation is what it is, but then you choosing how to manipulate your energy within the situation, because that's going to either add to it or take away from it. Is that correct?
That is correct. And only you can decide that because you're the one in the situation, having the experience occur to you. Remember, not all people would react the same way to the same situation. And there's where the difficulty is. You've got to be very good at you and how you go with things and not go with what people tell you. You know,
Or not go with what your mind is telling you, because a lot of what we're saying is external, but a lot of what we face is also internal. It's that internal voice that's like, freak out or feel this or do that, respond this way, react this way. So it's almost also like being able to say to the mind, okay, whoa, I hear you, but that's only going to make me spiral down. How about we try and feel something different, because we can't change the situation. This is what's happening. Let's try and feel something different, because if I'm going to add to the frictional energy, I'm only going to propel it. Whereas if I try and dissipate it with a conscious thought, like you're saying, okay, posture, body, am I breathing? Am I present? Am I aware? Then we almost start to, doesn't change it, but it dissipates what we could be doing worse to it.
that's correct. That's correct. And it depends on the individual. You know,
Yeah.
some people can totally get themselves 100% out of it, and some people can't. There's nothing good or bad about it. Kristen, were you going to say something before?
Yeah, I wanted to, looking at my knee, it was yesterday. So when the doctor came to me and said, we have fluid in the knee, pulls the needle out, I'm like, I'm gasping for air. When she does it, I'm in tons of pain. I'm like, no. And now she wants to do a crystal shot. So my whole point is, if my body was aligned, that wouldn't have hurt. I would have be able to let that
Well,
go.
it wouldn't have gone as badly. In other words, you would have been able to, like I gave the example in the surgery, you would have been able to kind of go, oh, okay. But remember, that takes time and experience. Remember, a lot of people, their system is programmed for reactivity. So you got to slowly let that go. And I never encourage people to force anything. Never force anything in your system, because it's not advantageous. You've got to be gentle with it, like a frightened animal. You've got to take time. And I often tell people, stop, just stop or pause and just breathe. Always go to breath, and then see what comes to you from there. One of the biggest Alexander things is just to stop. Just stop. Nobody's making you go further. You know, and there's those famous stories where people getting in an elevator and they like just stopped.
Can you hear?
Like didn't take the elevator. Yes. Say that again, Anna.
Oh, yes, you can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, you can hear. I don't have a microphone to shut it down. I don't. I just have a square.
Oh, that's okay. But were you asking a question?
No. I just wanted to know if you could.
Oh, okay. Good. So now what I would like, and Antoinette and I spoke about this, we would like to get your views on this, what do we want to call it, workshop. And because one thing that's really what we would like is to put it out there in a bigger way to people. But, and Antoinette, chime in whenever. But the thing about Alexander, it can be a real turnoff, because people can look at it and go, what, my head? What about my head? My head's at the top of my spine. You know, that's just what it does. They're like, it doesn't make sense to them. And as Jane said about her first class and my first class, I didn't understand it at all. I thought it was nonsense. I truly did. But I was an actor as well. And I thought, what does this have to do with acting? So that's what we're looking to do. And any suggestions and or if you have what we would love to get a testimonial from anybody who'd be willing to write one, which would be great. Antoinette, is there anything I'm forgetting?
I'll reframe it a bit, maybe. I think if you could do a video testimonial, if you've benefited and you love this, that would be amazing. If you can't do a video, a written testimonial. And then the reason we initially set up this group and asked everybody to come on, and asked that the exchange would be that you could kind of be co-creators with us as in give some feedback. How has it been for you? I think it's been pretty amazing for all of us, but if we're going to put this out there now, have you got any suggestions, any feedback? Really honest. I think Gary's open to any kind of honest feedback. Am I right, Gary?
Oh yeah, because again, I can't be you taking the class.
Yeah, because it's actually quite complex. Gary wants to put out a series of modular pre-recorded videos in a course material, maybe with an add-on of a group meeting and some notes. And when we brainstormed it, I didn't quite get the Alexander, to be honest, and I'm not a stupid person. I'm quite well schooled in these things. So I suggested to Gary, why don't we do what we're doing now? And now I get it completely, So now it's about breaking it up and putting it in a modular way that can become evergreen, because if it can also become evergreen, then it outlives anybody that's involved in it, and it can help people for a very long time. And that doesn't mean it's all not that it's all pre-recorded, but a pre-recording element we think could work. Hatumba made a suggestion because she had to leave early on all the sessions. So I don't know what you all think, is that it gets broken up into small chunks, like just the head and the skull part, or like 20 minutes clips. But I think we can hand it over to all of you to give feedback. Or
to
me, are you okay with that?
To me, it was wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
No, really, because just the fact, the very first class for me, to know that our head is like the brain, it's our whole body, and it's like the brain is like a tail that goes all the way down to our spine and all that. That was to me like, whoa, like an aha moment, it was an aha moment. And then we made the exercise where we had to put our head like this up, and you said afterwards, tell us what you feel, give us a feedback. I really didn't dare to say anything because my feedback was nothing physical. That's the thing. I was nothing physical. It was totally more. It was like I just went somewhere else, like I went like light, and I felt so less. I've been having a lot of stress and a lot of inconveniences and not nice relationship with people and things like that. And when I just stretched and I knew that my head could go up and this stays here, it's like everything went away. Absolutely everything went away. It's like really a lot of just calmness, and like Gary always says, just let go. It was nothing physical. It was all emotional.
Sure.
That's why I say.
And we're programmed to feel that that's very important. But again, it's up to your system whether you want to make it important or whether you don't. You
Yeah.
see what I mean? I mean, we can be devastated by anything. We can be devastated by breaking a nail. You know, I mean, come on, about a nothing.
Yeah.
Or we could be not devastated about something massive. So, but that's us. And then we have to decide, where do I want to put my energy with this thing?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whatever it is.
So I wanted to say thank you so much. This has been really great. And I also wanted to just offer this, that if you in fact are interested in using this, I think it would be so powerful to use this to educate people about Alexander as a holistic healing modality, because it's very much been separated off. I've been around it for years through the acting community, etc. But I watched all of the forces of Western medicine go in on somebody over the last 2 weeks in the way that I just described. I spoke to you briefly about it, Gary, but
Yes.
yeah. And you know, I heard someone call it the health scare system. I mean, this family was told he's in denial. We got to bring the psychiatrist in. And I realized this machine had begun to go into motion. So if the emphasis, and what's so powerful about your experience, first of all, you're a wonderful teacher. Secondly, you're welcome. Secondly, the emphasis on, you know, how you let go, whatever that bliss element is key, I think, to your unique offering. I was trying to write an understanding of the fluidity in the body as opposed to the rigidity. And this also, as Anna was saying, this idea that the brain, I've been using this and so aware that if I felt a pain in my body, just even something that I probably would have been unaware of in a certain way, I tried to think it through in terms of this, that's part of your brain, and it went away like immediately. So that's very impressive. I would say, and I wrote down, emphasizing the healing link with the body, mind, spirit connection. And I know this is in a way hackneyed or overused, and people are like, oh no, more holistic, but that's really what it is. And that's what is the difference between traditional Alexander and I wanted to just share in a testimonial way, and I'll be happy to do a video too. So, but I had a terrible emotional shock a few days ago, and I have somatized a lot through my life and worked a lot on reversing that so that I'm not taking in the anxiety. I could feel the cortisol. I have had many panic attacks, you know, and so I really had to work on this. And when this thing happened, it was a shock. And I realized my body was, well, first of all, it wasn't taking it on in the way it has before, but it was really like doing the limbic system thing of fight, flight, a lot of cortisol, etc. I tried to talk my way through it with my husband, who's not much of an analyzer, so that was not that great. But the next day, I was observing myself, and I spent the whole day in the yard. I went into the yard. I swam, really, a total of about 2 hours I found myself, I was watching, wow, because swimming, of course, has a real thing that is, and then I did a lot of yard work. I was barefoot on the ground. I transplanted a giant aloe plant, went back in the pool, and I thought, wow, I am reorganizing. I'm recalibrating my whole system. I was able to be conscious of what I was doing, of what my body was doing, because we've been working on this. So and then at the end of the day, I was like, wait a minute, I think that really worked. I mean, so it was funny because my mind wanted to grab it back again. And then I was like, it's gone. It's gone from my body. It doesn't mean there's not an issue. but
Right.
it's gone from my body. And that was a huge step. So I'm sharing that. And if that's helpful in any way, I think.
Thank you. It really is. It really
Okay.
is. And how something can have an effect in such a profound way without really doing this for years.
No,
You know
right.
what I mean? You don't need to. A lot of people think it's because, and yes, I've probably, because I have more years of experience, I'm better at transforming it a little bit quicker. But I've seen people do amazing things in a short amount of time. People who were through severe trauma. So it doesn't, all you have to do is hit the right, thing. And it can be unbelievable. I had a stroke guy, terrible. I mean, the whole 9 yards with the arm, couldn't walk, the cane, and literally he said, no, he can't walk without this arm, right? And the first lesson, I was able to get him to drop the arm, and he was like, well, it usually doesn't do that until I fall asleep. I said, well, not anymore.
Right.
And sure enough, he got up, he started to use the arm, and then he went, I don't think I need to use it. One lesson. So again, the possibilities are endless, but what I try to caution is if you don't get a great response, it just means your system has to process more to get there. That's it.
Something about the potential existing for that degree of transformation to happen. It's, like Anita Morjani's work, etc. I mean, this thing is, how do you get into that magic zone? And then a lot of people get the frantic kind of thing of trying to get into the zone, which is counterintuitive, it goes against
it. It makes it worse. Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's why, Jane, we discussed, Gary and I, doing general modules like have been presented here, which could be for anybody, for anything, actually, and then starting to go into specializations, because Gary would do something different for someone with a mental problem to someone with cancer. So
I understand that, and I would only, I'm offering my own experience. I wrote a book called The Gateways, The Wisdom of 12-Step Spirituality, and it's utilizing body-mind tools, a lot of this alignment stuff, and showing many ways of healing using the scaffolding of the 12-step system. Somehow, though, because the reference is so widespread in culture, I mean, it has nothing to do with getting sober if you don't want to use it for that. I could, but I have discovered that I think it's less accessible for people because somehow I mentioned the 12 steps. That is the template I'm using. So I guess what I would say is, I see that the 12 steps can be a universal tool for healing, and this was my attempt at making it accessible for people. I think there's also enough awareness of Alexander that there should be some specificity about the healing component of this, and that it's not for anything, anytime. It really is. You have had your very individual experience. That's the compelling. Now, wait a minute, what's going on here? How did he do that? How is he doing that? I
suggested to Gary that he maybe doesn't even call it Alexander. He comes up with his own title because he has got his own unique, there's so much of him and his own in this over and above.
The Gary.
Gabrielle Bernstein, who's a kind of a whatever, she's a holistic teacher too, and whatever one thinks of her work, she teaches essentially the 12 steps and never mentions
the 12 steps.
And so, okay, I mean, that's fine, but it's become a very popularized sort of, I don't know what I think yes, one should internalize. That's why I'm saying the technique shouldn't show, but really the strength of this is Alexander. So that's where I think I know you're gonna be able to come up with how to make that your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Taryn,
But-
have you
Great.
got a minute?
Also acknowledging the source is critical.
absolutely.
Sorry, man. Sorry, Taryn has to go. Taryn, can you give us feedback before you go?
Yes, I would love to. Sorry, I've got a whole house full of creatures that I have to look after.
Oh dear, yeah.
The power's about to come on, and I really wanted to share some feedback. So I'm really sorry I have to leave early. Firstly, Gary, it's been so incredible to spend this time with you and Antoinette for orchestrating all of this, and for everyone else to have met you all and heard your stories and your input. I'm gonna miss this, guys. 3 sessions was not enough.
Gonna-
The first thing that came up for me was almost I connect very deeply to what you've gone through, Gary, and the way in which you've gone through it. And because you're on the other side, like Antoinette and I have often spoken about, we often forget the steps in which it took to get us to where we are.
Right.
And from my experience, and as I shared earlier, it's nowhere near as intense as yours was. However, the route and the process was the same. I had to understand my body and my actions.
Yep.
Then I had to understand my mind and the thoughts I was thinking that was enabling my body. Well, emotions first, sorry. So there was the body, there was the emotions, and then there was the thought, the mind. So for you to be able to somehow understand what the problem is that people are facing and what the solution you have is to it. And let's take the word solution away, because solution is very tainted. We almost want to say the healing, the new being, the becoming, what the becoming you have to offer them is. So you want to highlight the problem and highlight the becoming that they can become, because what you have realized is that we are infinite beings that have the potential to heal. We have the potential to become what we have told we do not have the ability to be.
Yes.
And that's miraculous. And you are living proof of that. And for you to be able to share that message, to be able to say what you have been told isn't what you think it is. You can be.
Beautiful.
more.
I may use that as the introduction. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. And then what you want to do is you want to take all of this information. So we've almost revved up in 3 sessions what you can expand on. And I'm sure there's so much more that you have to share,
Sure.
but almost to break it. So you have to say to yourself, how many lessons, how many weeks do I want to spend once a week with this group? So let's say hypothetically, we're going to say 6 sessions. So you want to take the knowledge you have, you want to mind map it, and you want to go, okay, so overall, this is what I'm sharing with people. Now, for you, and whoever you're working with behind the scenes, let's break down this entirety into our chosen time, 6 sessions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in each, you focus on the one point. How in our first session, you focused on the body and the head. In this session, we focused on the presence of moving. So you almost want to have that one pinnacle point you hit. So even if it's an hour-and-a-half session, but you've only chosen one point, as we've seen, we each have a point to share and discuss, and that takes time. So you don't need to have so much information per session. You just need to have a point of a seed to plant within them, and then everyone shares, because it's through our sharing that we learn from each other, and it's through our sharing that we learn from what you have seeded in the beginning of the session. So you seed it in the beginning of the session and you let it grow. And then the next session, you seed your next point and you let it grow. So you want to create the structure, and then within the structure, everybody adds their little bedazzlement.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Beautiful people. Good to see you all. Good night.
All
And
right. Good luck.
Thank you.
bye.
Good luck. All right. Well, I mean, so I'm good with everything. Antoinette, is there anything you want to add?
Loretta and Kirsten, have you got any feedback?
Okay, so I mean, it was obviously great, and I mean, I also my SI pain that I had for 4 weeks is gone. So
Oh, nice.
and I really have been so when I'm sitting in my office, every now and time I might catch myself. I'm even doing it with my clients now. Before we actually do a visualization, I make sure that they lift their skulls and they so that everyone's. So what I've noticed for me is that it's like, I mean, at the risk of sounding cheesy, it really helps to connect you to your heart immediately. Takes me completely out of my head, and my clients as well. Takes them out of their head, connects them to their body, and like beyond their body and their mind. Basically, it's a bit like Anna says. It takes you to another place, actually.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of a testimonial. So I'll do that for you on a video for sure. So there's no doubt about the fact that this works. So I mean, that's why I ask all the questions, right? Because I have issues and I'm a concrete learner, right? So my suggestion would be the way I would do it if I was going to improve on it. My criticism is, if I'm going to put it this way, my constructive criticism is, so I could understand what was going on because I work in this field and this whole mind body thing. And I get the sense that almost everyone here is there, all right? But if you're going to be doing this with people who are cold, as in they have no idea, for me, there has to almost be like, not a huge amount of theory in a lecture, just a little bit of background. So I happen to know about Alexander. It's not big in South Africa. So let's start off. And I know we're a little country and all that. It's not big here. But somebody 20 years ago, a mentor of mine said to me, you really need how to breathe and regulate your posture. And I would recommend Alexander. And there was no teacher. And I read a book. And so vaguely in my mind, it's got this thing for actors and singers. And, it helps you project your voice. And so if you'd ask me, what is Alexander? That's what I know about it. Okay. And I mean, and like, I'm in this scene, right? I've been working as a homeopath and a holistic healer for 27 years. So I personally think I hear what Jane is saying, that you don't do Alexander like everyone does Alexander, but I think there are a lot of people who have no fucking idea what Alexander even is. Yeah. So it's almost like we need a little bit of that. I would have, to contextualize it. So I think it's very important that you don't have to make a different program for different people. You just have to realize that maybe the group that we worked with here had a certain level of understanding of this whole mind body thing. Okay. And that if you want to try and reach as many people as possible, you have to work on the assumption that they don't know anything. Which I'm not trying to infantilize people, but I think you have to go on that assumption that they know nothing. So all the stuff that you said tonight, almost not all of it, but like some of this, and I know you did mention it, but some of this like really powerful stuff that, you are the controller of your mind, and you want to practice this so that when the shit hits the fan, you can do it. And that's why you want to just do it in your normal life, when you're sitting, when you're walking up and down the stairs, it's because the more you practice it, the more you can integrate it. So I almost feel like if there was like a little bit of that, and then that first thing you did, well, because I'm cerebral, that whole explanation of the skull on the vertebra, like the teacup in the saucer, and I was like, okay, I get this. The erector spinae lifts the spine. I never have to stand up straight. So that, I thought that part, I thought it was all amazing. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is we have to make really sure what result we want to get, you want to get with this, and who is it for? So if you're preaching to the choir, then it needs less background. But if you're preaching to nobody who's ever been to the church, in the choir, there's no one in the choir yet, right? Then there needs to almost be like a little bit of context on the whole mind, body, spirit. And so what we're doing, so from my understanding of it is, I would be like, okay, if you want that the body has an innate capacity to heal itself, your body has a natural intelligence, it's always flowing to health. Yes. And when you apply this technique, you basically are opening it in order to let that flow. So, the really spiritual people will say, well, that must be God flowing in me. The new ages will go, that's the universal life. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. That's where I would go with it a little bit more concretely.
All
Because
right.
and what Jane is saying, and I mean, honestly, Gary, you're the fucking living proof, right? So of course we're gonna believe you, all right? Because you're the man. Okay? And the technique is really simple. So maybe the what Taryn was also saying was quite useful is that yes, you know, it's really simple. That first night when we lay down, I mean, that is actually it, right? That's what we got to do. And then the next one where okay, so now we've added the arms and legs, and then tonight sort of finished it. So those little bits could be like the 20 minutes. And then maybe with some like fleshy group meaty, sherry, what's your experience? And then, and like you did tonight, like someone asked a question and then you can break it down, because that actually makes it much easier to appreciate. Okay, so what do I do now? Okay, like I'm going to have my meniscus fluid drawn. Okay, so instead of going, because I don't like needles, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to make my diaphragm massage my organs. I'm going to and then I'm just going to be receptive and open to this so that the actual procedure isn't traumatic. So sorry about the long.
Thank you. No, that was great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, I think this is so helpful too. I just want to add one more thing about really, I mean, you were talking about, he pulled out this big needle. I mean, so much of bedside manner is gone with corporate medicine.
Yeah.
And so you advocated for yourself, Gary. I love that you said, you know, I'd rather die in a beautiful place than with you.
I'm with you. Because you're a donor. That's
We're
what
talking about taking our power back too. And that's an element of what this is stopping the train. I mean, I was helpless this last week in this situation of helping someone who had a sudden diagnosis and trying to help his family, but also not intrude in a way that was really out of any role I could perceive for myself there. I just watched this corporate health system take over and insist that anyway, so I guess if there's some, I don't know, I'm trying to I would love to use this in some way, user-friendly in some way with my work, to have it be, you know, because I agree with this, what Loretta's saying about, you know, it's simple.
Simple. You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
And it could be absolute complementary. It should, you know, practice along with whatever this other stuff is that's going on, because yes, we're all, I mean, you know, I've done years of homeopathy and acupuncture and all of this, and of course was an actor for so long, that, you know, my body, I'm aware of my body as an instrument. I don't know that a lot of people are.
Yes. Kristen.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, everybody has said everything that I felt. I think the way you do step by step makes a big difference. I'm ADD, so going step by step actually helped a lot. And thinking, what I didn't connect is I went to massage school, and half the stuff you said, I went, geez, I didn't even think about that. But having to do every body part, this is what we did. You had to relax every body part when somebody was working on it so you could understand it. So I never connected that with it. And you described some things about muscularity I never learned. So that was interesting to me. I have to, because I'm ADD, I have to go back over and over it again and play it to get little pieces of it and be able to put it all together. So that's why doing, you know, ABC works well if you're going over and over and over it. At least it works well for me that way because I'm ADD. So the concept's a little bit better each time that I try it. So I would absolutely love to do more of this. I have, as everybody else says, I have a major trauma right now. I'm homeless. So, and really homeless. So I'm hoping that that can help with that situation. When I fell, like I said, I fell, I laughed about it and it hurt like hell. But my sister Andrea and my friend said, you're going to the doctor. And I laughed again. Now it was killing me, and they made me go. And even though my face was completely black and blue, I was laughing about it. That's not me. So I helped in that way. I'm even laughing about it, even, you know, it's a lot better. But I think thinking back, I'm like, that's not usually me. So that particular thing, I think it helped with. So even if it's one thing that I got from this, and I can move forward with. I need to deal with my knee, my back, which are severe. But now I'm trying to get the concept what you say today. So my mind is creating my knee pain in a different way. So
Yes.
I was tense when it happened. When the doctor told me, I was so tense with fear. If I had been relaxed, which I guess I have a lot of working on, then that would have, even though it would be painful. I didn't understand that. Sorry, my phone. Even though it would be painful, I would have been able to deal with the pain and not panicking so much that it made it worse. Is that
a different way? Yes, yes. And that's really what the practice is about.
Okay.
Because I mean, I deal with things now that nothing like I did years ago, nothing at all. And I'm not involved with them in the same way. But, and we all can do it. Everybody can do it.
That is a goal once you had started, because I want to see the first one again, because you explained detail to detail. And because of ADD, I got lost in some of the things and then go, okay, let me try to go back to that. So I want to watch the whole thing again. So yeah, definitely will. And, 2 or 3 times, because I do believe if you do that, I do believe that you get another piece, and that you can understand over and over and over again. So I will definitely do that. And I definitely would do more classes if you have, more groups. It would be something that I would definitely benefit and hope everybody else does too. And I would recommend it to anybody.
Thank you so much. And absolutely. And that's why I record everything. By the way, in classes, I do the same thing. Anybody can record. Some people don't like to, but some people do. And I do it because you know what, Kristen? Almost everybody has a little ADD. Almost everybody, because it's just the way the mind body works. Some people can hear one thing and not the other. And it has nothing to do with anything other than their life programming. That's it. That's all it is.
Some people learn kinesthetically, some people learn visually, there's so
many. Right. You have no, so I would always do various aspects, and I would tell them, please do whatever you're comfortable with. But do you know, in my school, no one was allowed to record except in my class.
Oh, yeah. And see, that would have been a class that was great for me, because a lot of teachers wouldn't let me do that. Even doctors. I have gone to
doctors won't let you record sometimes. Nope.
And Bob just said to me, he goes, hold it underneath something. And I've done that before, like under my jacket, and recorded it. So of course, it's not, but I need to use this technique immediately. So that's why I need this, because of being homeless. I have to try to not be completely panicked, never knowing what day is going to happen. I need to try to apply this to right now, and not panic, because I'll be going to a hotel tonight, the next 2 nights, and then I'm going to a campground. After a week, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I am trying not to panic, but so I'm going to use this technique to try to help. Doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly. I don't even know if I can do it with that, but I hope to be able to use this for that. And the information that you've given, that was incredible to be able to, because you've never heard a lot of this stuff before, or if you have, it's piece by piece and nobody ever connects it. So, hopefully, and I hope that this takes for that next week and a half, when I find out, I don't know where I'm going in a week and a half. So I'm going to try to stay calm that way and try to think
But remember, a lot can happen in a week and a half. A lot can happen. Miraculous things can happen in a week and a half. So again, we never really want to project into that future. Had I projected into the future, I would be dead, because that's all they told me. They said it over and over and over. So I just never, I was like, okay. And that's their perception. And I would let them have it, but I would not, give over my power to them. So, this is great.
Something about, you were talking about forcing things, and being an athlete, I force everything. I mean, you've got to get better, get better, get better. And so I had a difficult time with that, because I want to do better. I actually hiked 3 mountains a couple of weeks ago, and two of them in like back to back. And one of my ideas was to do this alone and accomplish it to get my life back, to get my power back. And the first one I did, couldn't do it. I think that's the one I hurt my knee. I tried it a second time, couldn't do it. I tried it a third time, and I still didn't do it because I was alone and there was a lot of danger in some of the spots. So I was trying to be smart. The other two, I got halfway and I stood there and said, I can't do this. I don't know how I can do this, because I was weak physically and mentally, hadn't done this for years. And then I forced myself up, you have to do this. And what was weird was I got up there, could only spend 15 minutes up there because I had to come back down fast. But I didn't feel this joy that I thought that I was going to feel. I thought I was going to feel euphoric. And I got down, I'm like, I did do this. But I had in my mind that I was supposed to be euphoric about it. So I had already changed and put that idea in. The second one was even more grueling. So, and when I got down with that one was so difficult that I was like, I did this. And I did them, another one, I did them back-to-back days. So I was physically able to do it. My knee got crazy. But, and so thinking about now what you're saying, when I was building up but you talked about not forcing yourself, but that was trying to force my mind over matter. So is that is that what you talk about? Because it is a force. I was forcing myself to get up that by will.
Correct. And remember, the body has certain limitations. And remember, it will come. We can't become masters, but we can't become masters immediately. You go like me, with the lung cancer, I go as far as I can go. And then it's like, now I'm going to sit down. We're not going to go any further. I'm not going to make a game out of this in my mind and try to play it with my ego. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what my body is allowing me to do. And remember, whenever there's pain, stop. You already know you're in trouble. So pain means stop. Just stop.
I pushed through that to get myself up there. Now, did it create my problem? I think it did. But I did get to try to have some of my power back in life. So it was a push-pull thing.
Part of it was good and part of it didn't turn out so good. But that's knowledge for the next time.
Right.
That's all it is. It's all information. There's no bad or good.
What I liked about this, that you gave information and it intertwined some good things and that you can apply today with it. And doesn't mean you have to do it, which I'm going to be doing over and over again. But just like you said, that gentleman who had the stroke, he applied it in one visit, one time.
One visit. But he had a lot of bad experiences. And so with me, somebody told him, this guy, you will have a great experience. He believed it and it worked. You see what I mean? He was in a different place.
Well, thank you, because it was great. And I will do more.
All right, and you've got the recording, so you can always watch.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Really, my love to all of you. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and doing this. Beautiful.
Thank you,
Really
everybody.
beautiful.
And thank you, Gary. And what an amazing group of people we had. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yay.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.